Now, I know it's a controversial topic. I could feel the tension in the room. Because I believe that everybody in this room that understands 3D actually has a superpower in the age of AI, if you know how to use it. Because if you're being paid for your labor, it's very likely to be automated, right? If it's judgment, it's far less likely. And it creates insanely detailed, like scarily good models. We invested in a skill and it had value, real tangible value. And then it's just suddenly come crashing down. It doesn't feel fair, but it's also not new. This happens all the time. Hello. Oh, there we go. Excellent. All right. This feels weird. Like I'm doing stand-up or something. All right. No. Okay. If you type gibberish into an image generator like Midjourney, you will still get a pretty image. Believe it or not, that is real. And yet, if you have a specific idea in mind, it struggles to follow it. Which is why to many artists, AI feels like the opposite of art, right? Like it's a tool that we can't control. It's automating all of the fun decision making and taking the artist out of the equation. So in this presentation, I want to show you how you can use your Blender skills to control AI so that you can automate the boring stuff and you can have more creative decisions to make better artwork. Because I believe that everybody in this room that understands 3D actually has a superpower in the age of AI, if you know how to use it. Now, I know it's a controversial topic. I could feel the tension in the room. And I think there's a lot of concerns around the ethics, and I think the ethical discussion is worth having. And I actually agree with some of it. Like, I don't think it's right that you should be able to, like, prompt someone's likeness or, like, easily prompt someone's art style. But I think also realistically, a lot of us know there's no going back. And even if you could wave a magic wand and, like, reclassify copyright law, some of the best models are made in China. And even if you got China on board, you can't enforce it because there's all these open source models that run locally. So I think it's best to err on the side of AI is going to be here to stay, and what can artists do about it? And I say this as somebody with a lot to lose. Like, I've spent 15 years building a career teaching people 3D, and I've put every dollar I've earned of that into Polygon, spending $10 million over the last 10 years creating assets. So our company is also learning how we can continue to deliver value in this new medium. So I'm going to show you some pretty blasphemous ideas, but if you're open to learning them, I think that it can let you create more, have more creative decisions, and get a better result in less time. So let's get into it. First workflow. The other day, I was inspired by the recent discussions around the moon, and I was like, what happened if in the future it's like all the private companies were going to the moon and they were all fighting over mining rights and there was no military or government, so it's like they had their own private militia and they're like defending their territory, because it could happen, I don't know. So I went to Midjourney, I tried to prompt my idea, right? And it wasn't what I had envisioned in my mind. I had this idea of like, it would be like, you know, dome-shaped habitats that are like 3D printed concrete. And I could get closer to the result with some prompts, but it always felt like I wasn't in control. I could never get it. And that's because a text-based generator isn't the right tool for the job, right? Like there's no language to describe some of these concepts, like how close are the buildings, the certain layout of them, the shape of them. There's no words that you can put this that everybody would understand. It's not the right tool for the job. The right tool for the job is a control net, which is a way of feeding in another image or a video to generate on top of. And the way to access this is ComfyUI. So it's a 100% open source, subscription-free model, and it can, multimodal platform, and it contains dozens of open source models. And if you tried it 2 years ago, I'd say like try it again because it's way less complicated than it used to be. It's got like a bunch of templates you can just click and try out. The one that I like is the Flux One Depth LoRa, and it works off something that Blender is really good at, which is depth passes or depth maps. So here's how it works. Oh, that's the one right there with a little ghost on it. So first you open up Blender and you do a basic block-in of all your basic shapes. So Just the large stuff, no details like this is where like some of the big buildings are, just simple large shapes that show placement and relationships. And then you generate from that, render from that a depth or missed pass, and then you save the image. Then this is what it looks like in ComfyUI, node-based layout. You put your image on the left-hand side, you type in a detailed prompt for what you're looking for, and then it will render out a bunch of ideas. And once you experience this, it's incredible, because with each generation, you're getting new ideas for what the scene could become. And if this feels lazy, well, previously, this step I did on Pinterest and ArtStation, right? Like I would just go there and just scroll and hope to find something that fit what I was looking for. So this is actually using more creative muscles, because I can try new shapes, new camera angles, and immediately see what those big shapes could be in a final image. It actually feels quite similar to procedural workflows. Like a couple of years ago, I made this cabin in the woods scene, and I had this idea in my head of like what the scene should be, but I had no idea of like where the camera should be or like what the best lighting setup would be. And so I set up this thing so that every frame it would render out a new camera angle and a new lighting setup. And then at the end of it, I use my taste to find out like that's a good idea, I might use that, or this is a cool angle that I hadn't considered. It's a very similar concept to this. Oops. Oh, yeah. So this is good for like a mood board, right? But beyond that, there's not much use that this has, because this is still a static image. If you move the camera angle, you get a completely different generation, because there's no consistency between generations. So now I'll show you how you can essentially freeze some of these assets to realize them, like realize them in place so that you can use them in Blender. And you do this using 3D model generation. So here's how it works. So you would take a screenshot, take a crop of an asset that you like, and then since it's too small and blurry, you'd bring it into Nano Banana, very versatile tool, tell it like up-res it, isolate it, put it on black. You get something that would look like this. And then you can take this and then put it into a 3D model generator, like Meshy, like Tripper, there's a bunch of different models, and then you would get a model. And you're probably wondering what the mesh looks like. It's like photogrammetry, it's like super high poly, but there's like a remesh function and a texture function. And importantly, this is just like a placeholder. This is a way to explore an idea. So I just want to freeze something in place so that I can build around it and try to build out the rest of this scene. So you could continue doing this for like the rest of the scene, but there's always going to be things that you'll forget, and there's only so many pixels you can extract from a single image, right? And so it actually helps to try a different method, which I've just started using, to help you build out the rest of the world. So you can use any sort of LLM, like ChatGPT, Gemini. I use Claude. You can use whichever one you want, and you describe what it is you're building, the type of world, the parameters, the constraints of the world. It's low gravity. You've got, military. You've got private, organizations competing over land. And then, and this is something I just learned recently, which is cool, ask it to then interview you with follow-up questions to help clarify part of the world. And then it will essentially build out a world Bible, like the rules, the parameters for this universe, and it's really interesting that it'll fill in things that I hadn't thought of before, right? Like it was like, well, if you've got like multiple companies, right, they're going to be like, they might have like different uniforms, different like colors, so they can like recognize each other on like different logos and things. I hadn't even considered that, right? So then with this, you can then ask it like what sort of assets might make up that world? What sort of vehicles? What sort of equipment? What sort of habitats? And it'll suggest things that, again, I hadn't thought of, like battery charges, like loading banks, things that actually make the world feel real that I wasn't even considering. And then this is the part that feels like weird, but it's like you can actually ask it to write the prompt for you to be used in another image generator. And first I was like really against this workflow because I'm like, how lazy can you be, Like I'm not even writing the prompt anymore. But again, this is just like, it's a first step and it's up to you to then guide it, right? So what I do with this, you copy and paste these into another template. This one is the flux to text to image inside of ComfyUI. You paste these in, you can change at the top there the number of generations. So you can set it from like 2 to 4 to 8 or higher. I usually do like 4 generations each, and I do every single asset, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, and it will generate 4 of each one. And then I then go in there and see like, it's amazing. Like there's things that I hadn't thought of, and then things that are like totally wrong. And then this is where you get to guide it, right? And say like it it was like too industrial. It had cables and like hydraulics. And it's like, well, that's not what I was after. It was something that's like futuristic, has to feel more sleek, and then it'll come up with something, and then that's wrong. And it's just like, it's a back and forth process. Very similar to like working with a team, working with an artist, where it's like their interpretation of something is different than what you had, but it's like it's guiding that process. And then if there's something that like, if you get close to a result and it's just not quite right, you can bring this into Nano Banana. You can use the draw over tool. And again, like working with an artist, like give notes. You draw different colors on the screen and say, fix this, add a logo here, and then you get something that's closer. But then at the end of it, you should have something which is like a folder full of different assets. And then you take these assets, and because there is a batch upload function of Meshi and tools like it, yeah, you can just go through it, and you can select your favorite images. I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. Drag them over to batch upload. And this, by the way, it costs about 8 cents per model to generate. Really, really cheap. And that's on like, I think the most expensive plan it could be. It's like, it's basically free. It's really, really cheap. And it creates insanely detailed, like scarily good models, okay? Again, it's like photogrammetry, so it's like really high poly. That's like 1.2 million. But you can make like proxy versions with it. It's got like a quick remesh feature. And then you can texture it, and then it will actually bake the textures, so like the normal maps into that, into those maps. So it's really, really cool. So then it's just a matter of like building out this world. And so I'll just preview something we've been building at Polygon recently. It's called Polydex. It's free software, and it's basically designed to handle all of your assets from anywhere online. Any asset library or any source, it should be able to ingest it and then enable you to easily use it. So this is how it works. You point to a folder with all of your assets in it that you've generated. It'll automatically generate all the previews for it. Whilst it's doing that, you can just start dragging them into Blender. And this is so fun. It's like working with Lego, right? You just like, it's things that I created. It's part of my world. And I can just start building out a scene really, really quickly. And so this is like, it's an iterative process. Every step of the way, I have control over what I'm doing. And for the things that aren't important to me, it's being automated, or it's like, it's being abstracted, right? So it's none of these assets are like, it's certainly not ready for like a game engine. It's not ready for anything besides like a background asset. But as a stage of like concept art, it's really, really fast. So with this workflow, one single artist should be able to create a scene like this in about a day. So previously a scene like this, and you guys know, if you had to model these assets, this would be months and months. If you had to texture it, might not get it done by the end of the year. I mean, maybe, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, something like that. But being able to cut this down to a day and have something that you can actually move the camera around, place it, get different camera angles, and importantly, iterate on it. If you've got a director, if you've got a client that has notes, it can iterate on that and improve the world as you go. And then I was also curious. I'm like, okay, so then it's like asset libraries. Are we cooked? You know, is Kitbash and Polygon? Are we like, what are we going to do? And so to try it out, I tried out Kitbash assets. So this is the Mission to Minerva pack, and I thought, like, does it look better if you use something by them? If it plays, and it does. Like, it's a totally different feel, and this is where like there's thought behind it. There's like it's functional aspects to each of the items to like relate to each other and to create like a cohesive world that feels real. And this is like the next step, right? It's like, and this is what gets us to the next slide, talking about future skills. It's like the modeling was a means to an end, but like the ultimate goal is creating something that's believable and real. And this is what's going to be valuable next. And I think actually like, and because I think one of the issues with AI is like it feels so demotivating because it's like, what do you focus on, right? You just learn this one thing and now that's automated. It's like, oh, well, what can we do? And I think I figured it out, at least maybe. It's like, are you being paid for labor or are you being paid for judgment? I think this question is the easiest way to determine what skills to focus on in the future. Because if you're being paid for your labor, it's very likely to be automated, right? If it's judgment, it's far less likely. So as an example, Retopo, mostly labor. Mostly. I mean, I'm sure they'd argue there's some creativity there, but it's mostly labor. Lighting, composition, asset design, mostly judgment. And there's no correct answer, right? For like, if you were to make like a moon colony, what's the correct answer? If you gave it to 100 different artists, you would get 100 different results. So there's no correct answer, there's no solution, and there's no one AI that I think that could deliver it. Now, I know some of you are like looking back at those vehicle meshes that were generated and you're thinking, oh my goodness, those models, like, is there a future in modeling, right? Like all these skills that we've learned are being made redundant. I think this is the hardest part because it's like we invested in a skill and it had value, real tangible value. It was like something that was going up in value. And then it's just suddenly come crashing down. It doesn't feel fair, but it's also not new. This happens all the time. And I'll give you one example. I used to know how to make physically accurate shaders in Blender. Did anyone used to do this? There's like a few of you, right? And it was so much work. You had to understand all the math, the physics of light, so many node groups, all the different math relations, making sure that it works so that the Fresnel, is affected by the roughness value. And it was so much work. And then Blender dropped the principal BSDF, right? And I'll be honest, I felt a little annoyed at first, right? Because like that was a valuable skill that I had learned. It gave me an edge over my peers, and now it's available to everyone. Doesn't feel fair. But there's only so many things you can learn, right? And if you're learning the math to physically accurate shaders, you're not learning storytelling, which is arguably 100 times more valuable to the end result. Which is why every version of Blender automates something new, right? The latest version, Blender 5.0, we had, where is he? Habib? Is he in the audience? There he is. We can thank him. The compositor nodes, drag and drop compositor nodes, so that you can have chromatic aberration, sensor noise, night vision, right? Without understanding the math to make this work. And it's like, is there value in those skills? Yes, but time is a finite resource. We can only learn so many things. And if we are freed up to do more creative things, it's a net benefit, right? So this is something that we celebrate because it lets us focus on the bigger picture. But the downside is that you do lose some skills. Like I like this quote, automate only the skills that you're willing to lose. And in the case of physically accurate shaders, I was happy to let that go eventually because it's like, it's not actually really useful to where I want to go in my career. But every artist will have a different answer to this, which skills they want to focus on, which ones they're willing to lose in order to gain something else. And so as hairy as the topic of AI is, I hope that as more artists can use it so they can have tools, I hope that more artists use it so that we can have tools that will give us more control to automate the boring stuff and instead, and retain the creative stuff. Thank you very much.